God's chosen ones, listen closely. The world around you is filled with distractions, snares, and hidden dangers, especially when it comes to your finances. As a chosen one, you are called to greatness, to a higher purpose, and yet the enemy knows exactly where to strike. If he can get to your resources, he can slow down your mission. He knows that if he can entangle you in financial traps, he can silence your voice and delay your divine assignment. But here's the truth. You are not meant to live in poverty. You are meant to walk in wisdom, abundance, and prosperity, the prosperity that God Himself has destined for you. So, why are so many of God's chosen ones still trapped in financial struggles? It's time to uncover the truth. Today, I'm revealing 9 shocking traps that have been quietly stealing your money, holding you back from the wealth and freedom God intends for you. If you've ever felt like something was off, like there were invisible forces working against your financial growth, trust me, you're not alone. The traps are real, but so is the power to break free. This message was meant for you. If you're hearing it now, it's no coincidence. The Spirit led you here, and now it's time to reclaim what has been stolen. Before we dive into the 9 traps, I want to ask you to take a step of faith. Hit that subscribe button right now, because what I'm about to share with you will change your understanding of both your money and your calling. And for those who know deep down this message is for them, type 1111 inches, the comments below, as a sign of your readiness for divine alignment and blessings in your life. Now, let's expose these traps and begin your journey towards financial freedom and the abundant life you were always meant to live. Are you ready to break free from these chains? Let's go. God's chosen ones, beware. 9 shocking traps stealing your money right now. As God's chosen ones, you are a beacon of sensitivity, compassion, and empathy. You feel deeply, and it is through your heart that you connect with others in ways many cannot. Your ability to empathize with the hurting and feel the struggles of others is nothing short of a divine gift. This sensitivity is what allows you to walk alongside those in need, to lend a hand when others shy away, and to bring light where darkness prevails. You carry the weight of humanity's emotions, and your heart beats in unison with those around you. However, this gift, while beautiful, can also become a tool the enemy uses against you. The trap of impulse spending. One of the most insidious traps that the enemy sets before God's chosen ones is impulse spending. The very emotions that make you so powerful can also lead you down a path of financial destruction if not carefully managed. Your compassionate heart may lead you to spend impulsively, be it on an item you feel will bring comfort or an expensive meal to temporarily soothe sadness. At times, you may feel compelled to give money to someone in need, not out of true guidance from God, but because you were stirred by emotion. The enemy whispers lies such as, "You deserve this, it will make you feel better," or "They need your help right now, don't think twice." These subtle lies disguise themselves as acts of kindness, generosity, or self-care. The reality is that impulsive spending is more than just a bad habit. It is a spiritual weapon used to distract you from your purpose. You see, God's chosen ones are often emotional beings, and that very emotional connection to others can be the gateway for the enemy to manipulate your finances. Emotional spending, no matter how innocent it may seem, can keep you trapped in a cycle of financial instability and can prevent you from using your resources in a way that aligns with God's plan for your life. A form of spiritual warfare. What if I told you that controlling your spending was a form of spiritual warfare? It's true. Every decision you make regarding your finances is a declaration. Either you are choosing to protect your calling and destiny, or you are allowing the enemy to weaken the very shield that guards your future. Your finances are not just paper and coins. They are tools, and with them you build either a fortress around your destiny or a prison that limits your ability to step into the fullness of your purpose. When you let your emotions guide your spending decisions, you weaken your shield. But when you exercise discipline over your spending, you create a stronger foundation for your future. The Bible teaches us that God has given us the ability to steward our resources well, and that we are to be faithful in all areas of our lives, including our finances. In Luke 16:10, it says, "Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much." This verse reminds us that our finances are a reflection of how well we steward what God has already given us. Impulse spending undermines that trust, but discipline in our spending honors it. The path to financial freedom. How can you move forward, God's chosen ones, and protect your financial future? The first step is to recognize the traps the enemy is setting. Don't be deceived into thinking that spending money impulsively is just harmless. The next step is to build financial discipline. Every dollar you protect is more than just currency. It is a shield around your purpose and your calling. Start by setting intentional boundaries around your spending. Reflect on your purchases and ask yourself, is this something I need, or is it a response to my emotions? Before buying, take a moment to ask God if this purchase aligns with the purpose He has for your life. This is where discernment becomes key. Financial freedom begins in the mind and the heart. Proverbs 21:5 reminds us, "The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty." So, take time to plan your finances, make wise choices, and set aside resources for the future. You are not only protecting your finances, but you are also securing the future God has called you to. Building the fortress of purpose. Every decision you make regarding your finances must reflect the divine calling on your life. If you are not careful, you may find that impulsive decisions derail you from the plans God has for you. When you choose to stop reacting emotionally to money and instead control your spending, you are actively building a fortress around your purpose. With each controlled decision, you protect not just your finances, but also your calling. Remember, God's plan for you is bigger than the temporary satisfaction that comes from impulse purchases. The enemy seeks to steal, kill, and destroy, but your financial discipline is your defense. You are the keeper of your destiny, and it is time to stand firm. Choose wisely, choose faith, choose purpose over impulse. Your financial journey is a reflection of your trust in God's provision and your willingness to be a faithful steward of the blessings He has given you. God's calling for you in this season. As God's chosen ones, you are uniquely equipped to withstand the enemy's attacks, especially in the area of finances. You may have been called to lead, to serve, and to build. But to fulfill that calling, you must first protect what God has entrusted to you. Let this message resonate deep within you. You have been marked for greatness, but that greatness requires discipline, wisdom, and intentionality. So, be diligent with your resources, be discerning in your purchases, and most importantly, trust that God will provide everything you need in His perfect timing. As you reflect on this, ask yourself, are my financial decisions aligned with my purpose? Am I allowing my emotions to lead me into traps? How can I steward my resources more wisely for the calling God has on my life? Let these questions guide you as you move forward in your financial journey, protecting your resources and building the fortress that will support your divine destiny. As God's chosen ones, you carry within you the divine spark that others often fail to comprehend. This divine energy propels you forward, leading you toward the destiny God has prepared for you. But even with this sacred gift, there are forces both seen and unseen that aim to divert you from your true purpose. One of the most insidious traps is the wrong associations. Your circle, your inner circle of friends, family, and those you trust will either amplify your blessings or drain them from you. For many chosen ones, this truth goes unnoticed. They step into their calling with hearts full of hope, intent on fulfilling the divine purpose they feel called to, only to find themselves surrounded by individuals who do not share their vision. These people may appear to be well-meaning, but in reality, they are nothing more than parasites. They don't see the calling on your life. They only see your provision. They may be your friends, your family, or even fellow church members, but their hearts are not aligned with your destiny. They see the blessings God has placed in your life, but fail to recognize the purpose behind them. These individuals stretch out their hands, always seeking something from you. They seem to be in constant need, never contributing to your mission or vision. Their presence in your life is cloaked in the appearance of relationship, but what they are truly doing is sabotaging your divine purpose. Instead of supporting you, they seek to feed off the blessings that God has given you, draining your resources and energy, leaving you emotionally and financially depleted. This is not generosity. This is a subtle form of sabotage, one that masquerades as friendship or love, but in truth, it is a distraction from the divine call on your life. But beware of the Pharisees, Luke 12:1, those who wear masks of righteousness but seek to strip away your divine calling. Can you remember a time when you were surrounded by people who, at first, seemed to support you, only to find that their influence kept pulling you back into places of doubt, guilt, or even confusion? You may have started to climb, to rise toward your purpose, only to be brought back down by constant demands and manipulative behaviors. It is like a tree trying to grow, but being constantly pruned by unseen hands until it can no longer bear fruit. The growth of your divine purpose is hindered by these wrong associations, and yet these same individuals are the first to appear when your harvest finally comes. When the blessings flow, they will be there, hands outstretched, eager to receive, but never willing to contribute to the work, the sacrifice, or the vision that brought you to that place of abundance. God's chosen ones, the time has come for you to learn the true art of discernment. You must learn to distinguish between those who are truly aligned with your destiny and those who have been sent as a drain on your resources, energy, and peace. This is not merely about cutting ties with toxic people. This is about safeguarding your divine calling. For every person who seeks to align with your purpose, there will always be another who seeks to divert you from it. Consider the story of Judas, the apostle who walked closely with Jesus, yet betrayed him for 30 pieces of silver. Judas was in the presence of greatness, surrounded by divine wisdom, yet his heart was not aligned with the divine plan. He saw the opportunity for his own gain, and in doing so, he betrayed the very source of his provision. This is the danger of wrong associations. They may be close, but they are not aligned. They may sit at the table with you, but they are not partaking in the same vision, the same purpose, the same divine destiny. As you move forward in your journey, ask yourself, who in my life is truly aligned with my destiny? Who in my circle is feeding into the divine plan God has for me? If you cannot answer these questions clearly, it may be time to re-evaluate the influence of those around you. God's chosen ones, not everyone who surrounds you, is meant to walk with you. Some are merely passing through, their presence a test of your discernment and your commitment to your divine purpose. Just as a tree must be pruned to grow strong and bear fruit, you must sometimes prune your relationships to ensure that you are not drained by forces that seek to distract or derail you. The Bible is full of warnings about those who would seek to deceive or lead astray, often under the guise of friendship or kinship. Do not be deceived. Bad company corrupts good character, 1 Corinthians 15:33. This is the reality for many chosen ones. They walk through life surrounded by people who take but never give. They offer nothing to the mission, the vision, or the destiny, but they are always there when the harvest comes. They will take the fruits of your labor, but they never helped plant the seed. God's chosen ones, your destiny is too precious to be compromised by those who do not share your vision or your purpose. It is time to stand firm in the divine wisdom that God has given you. Learn to discern the true friends from the false ones, the allies from the enemies, and the contributors from the consumers. Trust in the spiritual gifts you carry, for they will guide you to the right people and away from those who seek to hinder your growth. And remember, when your harvest comes, it is because you have worked for it, sacrificed for it, and remained faithful to the divine calling. Stand tall, because you have been chosen for something great. You are destined for greatness, and nothing, not even the wrong associations, will stop you. Final words: rise above, stand firm, keep walking your path. God's blessings are already on their way, but you must be wise in your associations, for they will either multiply your blessings or take them from you. Your destiny is in your hands, and it is time to protect it at all costs. Chosen ones, you must realize that your resources, your time, your energy, your finances are not simply materials for survival. They are divine tools carefully entrusted to you by God to fulfill your sacred mission on this earth. Every penny, every resource, every moment you spend is part of the greater calling that God has placed on your life. When you give them away to the wrong associations, you're not just losing money. You are sacrificing your divine strength, your ability to fulfill the destiny that God has carved out for you. Every misused resource weakens the foundation of your mission, just like a weakened structure that loses its integrity when one of its pillars is removed. You are not just dealing with a temporary financial loss, you are compromising the very essence of your calling. In the book of Matthew, Jesus reminds us, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Matthew 6:21. Where are you investing your time, energy, and resources? Are you pouring into the right places, into the right people who will help propel you toward your divine purpose? Or are you sacrificing your resources in places that drain you, keeping you from walking in God's full plan for your life? It's time for God's chosen ones to understand that saying no to the wrong associations is not an act of selfishness, it is an act of obedience. You must set boundaries, not just for your finances, but for your very life. Many have been misled to believe that saying no means that you are unloving, that you're rejecting others or abandoning them in their time of need. But hear this truth: saying no does not make you unloving. It makes you obedient to the divine purpose that God has placed in your heart. It is a clear and decisive step towards protecting your resources, your time, and your focus. Your divine calling cannot be fulfilled if you are constantly pulled in different directions by those who are not aligned with your vision. Have you ever felt guilty for protecting your peace and your divine purpose? Are you willing to release relationships that are not aligned with your destiny, no matter how difficult it may seem? Every time you cut off a wrong association, you are not just closing a door, you are making space for divine partnerships. These partnerships, aligned with your true calling, will elevate you to a higher level of purpose and effectiveness. This is a crucial lesson. Your destiny is not just shaped by the people you keep close, but by the ones you choose to release from your life. The right people will help lift you up, will contribute to your mission, and will walk alongside you in faith. Just like the right roots nourish a tree, so too will the right associations nourish your divine purpose. In 2 Corinthians 6:14, Paul warns, "Do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers." This is not just about relationships, it's about aligning yourself with people whose mission and spirit are in harmony with yours. Are you yoking yourself to those who are aligned with God's purpose for you, or are you dragging burdens that are not meant for you? Now, let's talk about debt, one of the most powerful prisons ever created by the systems of this world. Debt is more than a financial burden. It is a spiritual chain that holds you back from fully walking in the freedom God intended for you. It is designed to consume your energy, your time, and your prayers, not in fulfilling your divine calling, but in dealing with the stress of repayment schedules, late fees, and endless interest. This is a trap. Instead of serving God with joy and purpose, you end up serving creditors, bound to systems that thrive on your bondage. Debt is the thief that steals your peace, your creativity, and your potential for kingdom work. As God's chosen ones, you must understand the grave danger of debt. It binds your spirit. Just as a bird's wings are tied, unable to soar, so too does debt restrict your spiritual movement. It limits your ability to move forward in your divine purpose. Every prayer you utter is drowned out by the weight of your financial chains. Every dream, every vision, every calling you feel stirring in your spirit is met with the harsh reality of bills and creditors. In Romans 13:8, Paul reminds us, "Owe no one anything except to love one another." God's plan for you is freedom, freedom to give, to bless, to walk in your divine purpose without chains. Why allow the chains of debt to keep you bound when God has called you to be free? But hear the good news today. No matter how heavy the chains of debt feel, they can be broken. Debt is not permanent. It is a challenge, yes, but it is not the end. Just as a building can be restored if its foundation is solid, so too can your financial and spiritual freedom be restored through discipline, prayer, and wise action. It will not happen overnight, but step by step, you can rise above the weight that has held you down. What small steps can you take today to begin breaking free from financial bondage? What is one area of your life where you can stop serving the systems of this world and start living in the freedom God has promised? Refuse to live by the lie that debt is normal or acceptable. The systems of this world may tell you that it's just a part of life, that borrowing is inevitable, but as God's chosen ones, you are called to be a lender, not a borrower. This is your divine inheritance, the ability to freely give without being bound by debt, to bless others without fear of scarcity, and to be a conduit of God's abundance. Break free, little by little. You don't have to pay it all off in one go, but every step you take toward financial freedom is a step closer to your divine calling. Debt may tie up resources, but it will never tie up your faith. As you begin to walk in the freedom of financial independence, you will feel the weight lift off your spirit. Your inner peace will grow, and you will be able to fully devote yourself to the work of the kingdom without being weighed down by financial slavery. Do you believe that God can break every chain holding you back, even when it seems impossible? The Bible reminds us, "The borrower is servant to the lender," Proverbs 22:7. Debt keeps you in servitude to the systems of this world. But God has called you to be free, to be a freedom bringer to those around you, to pour out your blessings as you walk in the fullness of the divine assignment He has for you. So, stand up today, God's chosen ones. Declare your freedom, not just in spirit, but in finances. Break the chains of debt that have been holding you back. Every step you take towards financial freedom will empower you to walk boldly in your divine calling. You are not destined for bondage, you are destined for freedom. And as you break free from the chains of debt, you will find your spirit soaring higher than ever before, free to fulfill the purpose God has set before you. God's chosen ones, the path to prosperity and divine abundance is not as simple as just praying for blessings or hoping for breakthroughs. While spiritual power and faith are necessary for the journey, they are not enough on their own. In fact, you may have prayed fervently for abundance, declaring that blessings will flow, but without the divine wisdom to manage those blessings, your resources will slip away like water through your hands. This is not an isolated issue. The Bible gives us a clear warning in Hosea 4-6, where it says, "My people perish for lack of knowledge." This is why the principle of financial education is so critical for God's chosen ones. You cannot rely solely on the power of prayer to bring wealth without the wisdom to manage it properly. Without knowledge, you risk becoming a servant to your finances instead of using them as a tool to serve God's purpose for your life. In fact, this is one of the most overlooked truths in the spiritual journey. God cannot bless poor stewardship. You may pray for an increase, but if you are not prepared to handle the increase, it will quickly slip through your fingers. Have you ever found yourself in a place where you prayed for abundance, but when it arrived, it felt like it was gone too soon? How many times have you seen others receive financial breakthroughs, only to watch them fall back into cycles of lack because they never learned how to steward their wealth? Think of it like this. Imagine holding a vessel and pouring water into it. If the vessel is leaking, no matter how much you pour, it will never fill up. This is exactly how your finances work. If you do not have the knowledge and wisdom to manage your finances, no amount of wealth will satisfy or last. God desires to bless you, but you must be ready to handle the blessings He gives. Your spiritual life cannot be separate from your financial life. To be truly whole, you must marry the wisdom of God's Word with the practical knowledge of managing resources. To illustrate this point, let me share an example from John D. Rockefeller, one of the wealthiest individuals in modern history, who once said, "I always tried to turn every disaster into an opportunity." Rockefeller wasn't just lucky. He understood the power of financial education. He knew that prosperity required more than just prayers. It required learning, discipline, and an ability to seize opportunities. He didn't rely on divine blessings alone. He studied the principles of wealth and worked tirelessly to apply them. The Bible also provides an excellent example of this principle in the story of the parable of the talents in Matthew 25-14:30. In this parable, a master entrusts his servants with various sums of money before going on a journey. 2 of the servants invest and multiply the money, while the third hides his in the ground. Upon the master's return, the servants who invested wisely are praised, while the one who did nothing is rebuked. "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things." Matthew 25-21. This illustrates that stewardship is key to receiving more from God. Have you ever felt like you were waiting for a financial breakthrough, but it never quite seemed to arrive? Could it be that, like the servant who buried his talents, you may not have been using the resources you already have in a way that honors God? Spiritual power alone is not enough. It must be paired with financial wisdom. Too often, chosen ones receive wealth, but they waste it because they never took the time to learn how to budget, invest, or multiply it. This is not a condemnation, but a wake-up call. You do not need to become a financial genius, but you do need to understand the basics of managing what God gives you. In Proverbs 13:16, it says, "Every prudent man acts with knowledge, but a fool exposes his folly." Wisdom requires action and knowledge, and that includes the wisdom to manage your finances in a way that glorifies God. Are you willing to step into financial wisdom today? What could you learn in the coming weeks that would change your financial future forever? Let's look at this through another lens. In ancient Greece, philosophers often spoke about eudaimonia, a state of flourishing or living in accordance with one's true nature. Eudaimonia was achieved not through passive waiting, but through active learning, disciplined living, and the alignment of one's actions with their greater purpose. Similarly, in your financial life, it's not enough to simply hope for blessings. You must align your financial actions with your divine purpose. Your money is not for just spending. It is a tool to build the kingdom, to invest in God's mission on earth. There's also a beautiful classical music piece that serves as a metaphor for financial stewardship. Beethoven's Symphony No. 9 represents harmony and balance, each section of the orchestra contributing to a greater whole. In the same way, your financial life is a symphony, and every dollar you manage plays a note in the bigger picture of your divine calling. If one section is out of balance, it disrupts the entire composition. Your stewardship, your budgeting, your investment, and your savings all play a role in ensuring that the symphony of your financial life is in harmony with the calling God has placed on you. What part of your financial symphony needs attention? Are there areas where you've neglected the small details, only to find that the larger picture is out of sync? God's chosen ones, you are not destined to live in cycles of lack and uncertainty. You have been called to steward your finances wisely, to use them for God's glory, and to multiply them for His kingdom. But in order to do this, you must commit to learning. You must read books on money, seek wise counsel, and discipline yourself to use what God has given you wisely. The lesson here is profound. If you want to break free from cycles of financial struggle, if you want to step into the abundance God has for you, Start learning now. Don't let ignorance rob you of the blessings that are yours. God has provided everything you need, but it is up to you to apply the wisdom that is freely available to you. Will you rise above ignorance today? Will you commit to becoming the steward God has called you to be? God's chosen ones. Your generosity is a divine gift, a sacred calling that reflects God's nature in you. There is a supernatural power in giving. It opens doors, breaks chains, and invites abundance into your life. This is a fundamental principle in God's kingdom, where the law of sowing and reaping is not just a financial principle, but a spiritual law that governs every area of life. When you give, you are participating in the eternal flow of God's provision, and your generosity sets the stage for future blessings. But there is a subtle danger you must be aware of, one that can cause your generosity to backfire. The enemy understands the power of giving and will do everything in his power to pervert this divine principle. His tactic is simple yet effective. He manipulates the hearts of God's chosen ones, causing them to give emotionally rather than with discernment. Emotional giving is often fueled by guilt, pity, or a momentary stir of the heart, rather than prayerful consideration or divine guidance. This is where the danger lies when you give out of emotion. Without the clarity of God's will, you are sowing your seed in the wrong soil, and there will be no harvest. This is not to say that giving out of love is wrong, but there is a stark difference between giving in obedience to God's direction and giving impulsively because of external pressures. Jesus himself warned us, saying, "Do not cast your pearls before swine." Matthew 7-6. In this powerful statement, Jesus was reminding us that not everyone is worthy of your generosity. There are situations where your resources, whether financial, emotional, or spiritual, are being wasted on those who are not ready to receive them. The Bible teaches that discernment is vital when it comes to generosity. If you give without discernment, you are like someone who waters weeds instead of crops. No matter how much effort you put in, no harvest will come. Have you ever given generously to someone or something, only to feel spiritually drained and financially depleted with no visible return? What emotions drove that decision? Guilt, compassion, or manipulation? The truth is that giving without discernment is one of the enemy's most subtle tactics to keep you in cycles of exhaustion and lack. It can create a false sense of righteousness, leading you to think that you're doing something holy, but in reality, it leaves you barren, both in spirit and in resources. Consider the analogy of a tree in a forest. Imagine that you are a tree rooted deeply in the rich soil of God's word and guidance. When you receive rain, God's provision, you flourish and grow. But if the rain is given to a barren patch of land, filled with thorns and rocks, no matter how much rain it receives, it will never produce fruit. Similarly, when you give without discernment, your resources are wasted, and you end up emotionally and spiritually dry. In contrast, when you give according to God's direction, your seed multiplies, and you experience the blessing of a bountiful harvest. The Bible teaches us to be wise stewards of what God has entrusted to us. In Proverbs 4-7, it is written, "Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting understand." Wisdom must accompany your generosity, for when you give in line with God's will, you will see a multiplication of blessings in your life. True giving requires alignment with God's instructions. It's not just about being generous, it's about being strategically generous, directed by the Holy Spirit. Do you often feel pressured to give out of guilt or manipulation? When was the last time you paused to ask God for discernment before giving? Reflecting on the teachings of wisdom, in Luke 14:28, Jesus spoke about the importance of planning. "For which of you, intending to build a tower, sitteth not down first, and counteth the cost, whether he have sufficient to finish it?" Similarly, before you give, it is important to assess whether your resources are aligned with God's purpose. Are you sowing into kingdom-building efforts, or are you giving out of emotional manipulation, draining your resources without spiritual fruit? Let's also look at the story of the Good Samaritan, Luke 10:25-7. This is a classic example of strategic giving. The Samaritan didn't simply give money to anyone in need, but he gave strategically, with a plan and with care. He not only paid for the injured man's care, but he also ensured that there would be a long-term solution to his needs. This is what we are called to do, not to give emotionally or out of obligation, but to give in a way that aligns with God's kingdom purposes, with foresight and with wisdom. Are you careful to assess where you are sowing your time, money, and energy? Are you investing in long-term solutions that build others up, or just in short-term fixes driven by emotional impulses? Generosity is holy. It is a reflection of God's heart for His people. But generosity without wisdom is not only unwise, it is harmful. When you give without prayer or discernment, you are left drained, and the return on your investment is empty. God has called you to be a wise steward of what He has entrusted to you. Your resources are divine tools for advancing His kingdom, not just for meeting emotional needs. So, before you release your resources, take a moment to pause, pray, and ask God for guidance. Is this where God wants me to sow? If your answer is yes, then you can move forward in confidence, knowing that your generosity will produce a harvest. But if your answer is no, then hold back, for the cost of emotional giving can be far too high. Protect your giving, and it will protect your future. The lesson is clear: God's chosen ones. You have been called to be generous, but you must be wise and discerning in how you give. When you give according to God's guidance, your seed multiplies, and you will experience the joy of knowing that your generosity is making a real impact. Don't let emotional impulses drive your decisions. Instead, allow divine wisdom to direct your steps, and you will see the abundance that God has planned for you. Will you make the choice today to give with wisdom and discernment? Will you allow God's voice to guide you in your generosity? God's chosen ones, you carry within you divine visions, dreams, and callings that are far beyond your own understanding. These ideas are not random thoughts or fleeting desires. They are seeds planted deep within your spirit by God Himself. These are divine assignments, tailored specifically for you, meant to bring His kingdom to earth. However, as powerful as your vision is, there is a subtle yet incredibly dangerous weapon the enemy uses against you: delay. The enemy's whisper is soft yet persistent, urging you to wait, to put things off, to procrastinate. Do it tomorrow, it says. Take a break today, it urges. But before you know it, tomorrow becomes next week, then next month, and eventually the vision fades. This is one of the greatest spiritual attacks a chosen one can face: the battle of procrastination. It is not simply about lack of motivation, it is about the loss of purpose. Every delayed action is money lost. Every unacted upon dream is a door that remains closed, opportunities that slip away, and progress that stalls. The world is not waiting for your perfect timing, it is waiting for your obedience. There is a profound truth in the Bible found in James 2:17 that says, "Faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead." You see, God has never asked you to have perfect timing or perfect conditions before you act. What He has asked of you is faith, and faith is not passive. Faith requires action, and that action must often be immediate. You are not called to sit and wait for the perfect moment. The moment is now. Every moment you hesitate, you miss opportunities, and your destiny gets delayed. Obedience opens doors, but delay closes them. Chosen ones, let me share a powerful example from the field of architecture, something that might seem far removed from spiritual matters, but holds a deep lesson. Imagine you are designing a cathedral, a massive, intricate building meant to stand the test of time. You have all the plans, blueprints, and resources, but without action, the cathedral never takes shape. It's just an idea. It is only through the first stone laid, the first brick set, that the magnificent structure begins to take form. Similarly, your calling will never become a reality if you keep putting it off. Every dream and vision is like a stone waiting to be set in place, but the longer you wait, the more likely it is that the foundation will weaken and the vision will remain unrealized. Now, I want you to think about something personal for a moment. When was the last time you put off doing something God told you to do? How many opportunities passed by while you hesitated? The enemy thrives on your delay because every second you spend waiting is a second spent out of alignment with God's perfect will. Procrastination might seem harmless, but it is far more destructive than failure, because failure at least teaches a lesson, but procrastination teaches nothing. In Matthew 25-14:30, Jesus told the parable of the talents, where the master gave his servants different amounts of wealth to invest. The 2 servants who acted immediately and invested wisely were rewarded, but the servant who procrastinated and buried his talent was punished. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. Matthew 25-29. This parable is a clear warning to God's chosen ones. If you delay, you risk losing the very blessings God has given you. The longer you wait to act, the more you give away to the enemy. The time for action is now. Let's also consider a powerful, real-life example. Thomas Edison, one of the most influential inventors in history, is often quoted saying, "Genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration." What made Edison successful wasn't his amazing ideas, many others had those, but his ability to take action. He didn't wait for the perfect time to invent the light bulb. Instead, he failed many times, but each time he took immediate action to learn from those failures and improve his approach. He never allowed procrastination to steal his vision. What about you? Are you waiting for everything to align perfectly before you take action? Are you waiting for more confidence, more resources, more connections? God is calling you to move forward now with what you have, with the small steps that lead to greater strides. Obedience in small things unlocks bigger things. You are not expected to be perfect in your first step, but you are called to move. The enemy wants you paralyzed by fear and hesitation, but God calls you to rise and take bold steps toward your destiny. Think about an athlete about to compete in a critical game. The athlete doesn't wait for the perfect conditions. No, they take the field, no matter how they feel. The same principle applies to you, God's chosen ones. Your actions today, no matter how small, are the training grounds for the victory that awaits you. Action, even in the face of uncertainty, moves you closer to your divine purpose. In Ecclesiastes 11:4, the Bible reminds us, "Whoever watches the wind will not plant, whoever looks at the clouds will not reap." Are you waiting for ideal conditions to take your next step? Are you allowing doubt to cloud your decisions, preventing you from taking action? The time is now. Procrastination is a spiritual thief. It steals your dreams, your opportunities, and your potential. The enemy loves it when you hesitate because it keeps you stuck. But God calls you to move forward with boldness. You have already been equipped, and your obedience today unlocks the doors to your destiny. Every moment you wait is a moment lost. You may not have the entire path laid out before you, but when you take the first step, God will guide you, just as he did for Abraham when he called him to step out in faith. God never asked for perfection before movement, he simply asked for faith. So, chosen ones, the time is now. Shake off the spirit of delay, step into the calling God has for you, and move forward with confidence. The world is waiting for your obedience, not your perfect timing. The longer you hesitate, the more opportunities will slip through your fingers, and your destiny will stall. Are you ready to rise up and take that first step, no matter how small it may seem? Will you act now, or will you continue to wait for the perfect moment that never comes? God's chosen ones, the gifts and talents that you carry are divine assignments, handpicked by God, far greater than anything you could have ever imagined. However, when you abandon your divine purpose, you open the door for something insidious to take root: poverty. This is not just a lack of financial resources, but a deeper, more spiritual poverty. You cannot ignore your calling and expect provision to flow freely into your life. Heaven is not in the business of financing idleness, and it will not pour out blessings where there is no alignment with the purpose it is meant to fulfill. You are not simply a passive recipient of blessings. God has given you a mission, and it is in obedience to that mission that you unlock the resources, the influence, and the breakthroughs that you need. When you step out of alignment with the purpose God has set before you, you step out of the flow of provision. This is one of the most profound and spiritual truths. Heaven finances vision, not idleness. But here's the danger. Many chosen ones fall into a subtle trap, not of physical laziness, but of spiritual laziness. This is the kind of laziness that ignores the work God has set before you, preferring to chase after things that God never called you to. This can often look like pursuing goals that may seem right on the surface, but are disconnected from your true divine assignment. The result? You end up wondering why provision feels blocked, why the doors of opportunity remain closed, and why everything seems like it's out of reach. This is not coincidence. This is divine order. Consider the parable of the talents in Matthew 25-14:30, where each servant is entrusted with a sum of money to steward. The servant who buried his talent out of fear or neglect was rebuked, while those who invested their resources and acted on their assignments were rewarded. For everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. Matthew 25-29. The lesson is clear. Provision follows action, and action follows purpose. When you begin to chase after things that are not aligned with your divine calling, you are essentially wasting time, energy, and precious resources. Laziness in purpose leads to wasted potential. You toil in fields that were never meant for you, and that leads to frustration. You feel like you're putting in effort but getting nowhere. You work hard, but your resources remain out of reach because you are out of alignment with what God has called you to do. Consider the analogy of a vessel. When it is aligned with the current of the river, it moves effortlessly, carried by the flow. But when the vessel is out of the current, no matter how much effort you put in, it remains stuck in place. God has already set a flow for your life, a direction for you to move in, and when you align yourself with that current, the provision will follow naturally. Do you ever feel like you're working hard but not seeing the fruit of your labor? Have you noticed that the more you chase after things that are not aligned with God's purpose for your life, the more drained and frustrated you become? There's a powerful principle that lies in obedience, and it has been proven again and again, both in Scripture and in real life. When you step out in faith, heaven meets you with provision. In Deuteronomy 28:12, it says, "The Lord will open to you his good treasure, the heavens, to give the rain to your land in its season, and to bless all the work of your hand." Notice that it says, the work of your hand. The rain, the provision comes when you are engaged in the work that God has assigned to you, not when you sit idly by, waiting for the perfect moment. Consider the story of Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple. Jobs was not only a visionary, but someone who deeply understood the power of purpose-driven action. His famous quote, "Your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do," speaks to the core of this principle. Jobs was not only driven by ambition or success, he was driven by the alignment of his work with his purpose. It was in the action and obedience to his divine assignment that provision and breakthroughs began to flow. Are you chasing shadows, pursuing things that are temporary and not aligned with your true purpose? Or are you walking in your divine assignment, trusting that when you do so, provision will follow? The Bible warns us against chasing after things that pull us away from God's will. In 1 Timothy 6:9-10, Paul tells us, "But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation, into a snare, into many senseless and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evils. Notice, Paul doesn't say that wealth is evil, but that chasing wealth without a purpose aligned with God's calling leads to ruin. You are called to fulfill God's purpose, and when you do, provision will come. If you are struggling financially, it's time to pause and reflect. Am I walking in my divine calling, or am I avoiding it? The moment you return to the assignment that God has placed in your hands, the resources and opportunities will begin to align. Procrastination and avoidance will not bring provision. However, obedience to your calling will unlock heavenly resources that are already set aside for you. Do you feel like you are wasting time in the wrong fields? What would happen if you took the first step toward your divine calling today? Chosen ones, the enemy loves nothing more than to watch you waste your calling through inaction. He knows that your power lies in your obedience, and when you take that step, provision will follow. It is time to focus on your mission, to stop chasing after distractions, and to walk boldly in the calling that God has placed before you. The time to act is now, not later. Heaven is ready to finance the vision God has given you, but it requires action on your part. Stop waiting for the perfect moment and start walking in obedience to your divine purpose. The moment you take that first step, resources will align, opportunities will open, and doors will swing wide open. Are you ready to rise above hesitation? Will you walk boldly in the purpose God has placed on your life, trusting that provision will follow your obedience? God's chosen ones, the path that God has set before you, is uniquely yours. You carry a divine purpose, a calling that is handcrafted, designed to reflect the fullness of God's plan for your life. Yet, one of the most insidious traps the enemy lays before you is the temptation of comparison. This subtle, destructive force can steal both your joy and your resources all at once. You see, when you look at others, those around you who appear to be prospering, achieving, or flaunting their material wealth, it's easy to slip into a state of comparison. Why am I not where they are? Why do they seem to have it all? The enemy knows that once you begin to entertain these thoughts, he has found his way in. The danger of comparison is that it distracts you from your unique calling and shifts your focus onto someone else's journey. Instead of celebrating your divine path, you begin to feel inadequate, which leads to destructive behaviors. You may find yourself spending beyond your means, trying to keep up with the Joneses, desperately chasing things that have no eternal value, all in the name of imitation. This is exactly what the enemy wants. He knows that if he can cause you to be insecure about your own progress, he can drain your resources and sidetrack you from your true mission. The car they drive, the clothes they wear, the vacations they take, none of this has anything to do with your calling. You are not called to imitate, you are called to stand out. Your blessings are tailored specifically for you, just as your divine path is unique. No one can walk in your lane, and you cannot prosper in theirs. To fall into the trap of comparison is to forfeit the rich, authentic life that God has promised you. In Philippians 4:11-1-2, Paul writes, "I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation." This is the key to defeating the enemy's trap of comparison contentment in your own journey. When you shift your focus from external success to internal peace and trust in God's plan, you find that joy and provision follow naturally. God's chosen ones, you have been given a unique divine assignment, a journey that no one else can take. When you begin to compare yourself to others, you divert your energy away from your purpose and towards someone else's. When you try to imitate their success, you forfeit the blessings that were meant specifically for you. This is the trick of the enemy, to distract you, to make you feel small and insignificant, and to cause you to chase after what others have, even though it may not be aligned with your calling. It drains your resources, your finances, your time, and your emotional energy, making you weary and frustrated, because nothing compares to the fulfillment that comes when you walk in your own purpose. Consider the example of King Saul in the Bible. Saul was chosen by God to lead Israel, but his downfall began the moment he started comparing himself to David, a young shepherd boy whom God had anointed as the next king. Saul became jealous and insecure because of David's success and chased after his own path instead of trusting in the path God had given him. His obsession with David's success led him to waste resources, lose his sense of purpose, and ultimately lose the kingdom. His comparison led to his downfall. But the one who compares himself to others has not yet learned contentment in their own path. In with her. Do you ever feel like you are chasing the success or lifestyle of others, wondering why your progress seems slower or less significant? Have you noticed how your resources, both financial and emotional, get drained when you focus on imitating others instead of being authentic to your calling? The enemy knows that once he can get you to doubt your path and question your purpose, he can drain you financially and spiritually. But when you walk in your unique assignment, you align with the provision and resources that God has already prepared for you. Your journey, though it may look different from others, is perfectly designed for you. It is in walking your own lane that you will find contentment, fulfillment, and prosperity. In Psalm 16:5 it says, "The Lord is my chosen portion and my cup, you hold my lot." Your portion has already been set aside by God, tailored to fit your unique destiny. When you step into that calling with confidence, trusting that your blessings are uniquely designed for you, you will begin to see how joy and provision follow your authenticity. Think about a tree in an orchard. While it may seem like the tree next to it is growing faster or producing more fruit, each tree has its own purpose and season. Some trees produce fruit in the early spring, while others bloom in late summer. Both are valuable, but they have their own timing and calling. When you compare yourself to the tree beside you, you forget that your season is coming and your fruit will be abundant when it is time. Are you rushing through your journey because you feel that others are ahead of you? Are you focused more on what others have rather than being faithful to the work God has set in front of you? How much of your time and resources have you wasted on chasing shadows, only to realize that your true joy and provision come from following God's instructions for your life? You, God's chosen ones, are called to celebrate your own process, to embrace the unique rhythm of your divine journey. Your blessings are tailor-made for you, and no one else can walk in your lane. The enemy's trap is to make you believe that you are lacking or falling behind when, in fact, you are exactly where God has placed you. Trust that your time for manifestation will come in His perfect timing. The process may look different from others, but it is yours to walk, and in that authenticity, provision and joy are found. Don't let comparison rob you of the peace and prosperity that come with living in alignment with God's divine plan. Stay focused on your mission, trust in your process, and let go of the need to mimic someone else's path. You are blessed and chosen for the assignment ahead of you. Walk in it boldly. Are you ready to stop chasing after the success of others and embrace the unique path God has set before you? Will you focus on the process God has laid out for you, trusting that your blessings will come in His perfect timing? God's chosen ones, your financial journey is not just about numbers, investments, or decisions. It is deeply tied to divine wisdom. One of the greatest traps the enemy sets for you is to ignore the whispers of the Holy Spirit. These divine whispers, these gentle nudges of guidance, are not random or insignificant. They are God's way of protecting your destiny and your provision. But when you choose to ignore these whispers, when you silence the voice of the Spirit, you expose yourself to financial losses and regrets that could have easily been avoided. The truth is, the Spirit of God is your greatest financial advisor. His guidance transcends anything you can read in a book, any mentor you could consult, or any strategy in the world's financial systems. The Holy Spirit sees the hidden traps that lie ahead, the unseen dangers that could derail your progress. He knows exactly when to tell you to move, when to wait, and when to hold back. When you walk in obedience to His voice, you position yourself for abundance, for provision, for blessings that go beyond your own understanding. The Bible speaks of this divine wisdom in Proverbs 3:5-6, where it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight." When it comes to your finances, your resources, and your investments, trusting in God's wisdom is paramount. You may have the knowledge, the education, and the logical plans, but none of these can compare to the divine understanding that the Spirit offers. How often do you find yourself ignoring that still, small voice, the nudge that tells you not to buy that particular item, to wait before investing, or to move now when you feel the pull in your heart? How many times have you ignored divine guidance and, in turn, suffered from the consequences of that choice? Let me share a powerful example from the world of architecture. Imagine you are designing a magnificent building, a structure meant to last for generations. As the architect, you have all the blueprints, the design, and the plans, but without the divine wisdom of the right timing, the foundation could be unstable and the entire building could collapse. It is only when you align the design with the wisdom of the Spirit, waiting for the perfect moment to lay the foundation, understanding the flow of energy and resources, that the structure will stand firm.